Conversation, a podcast of the Student Housing Matters blog. Join the Conversation features interviews with higher education leaders about their institutions and careers in higher education, as well as their perspectives on the role on-campus student housing plays on a university campus. The objective of Student Housing Matters is to provide a forum for all involved with on-campus housing to share ideas and encourage their colleagues. Joining the conversation today is Cyndi Rapier, Director of Housing for International Programs at Green River Community College in Auburn, Washington. Cyndi has worked at Green River for 14 years and has responsibility for a wide variety of issues relating to the International Program, or IP. As an active member of the IP marketing team, enrollment management team, and services and operation team, she works closely with numerous persons in the administration on matters needing housing attention and consideration. She is a part of the Behavioral Interventions Team, International Student Success Council, President's Commission for Diversity, and various other internal work teams. On a personal level, she is actively involved with the Auburn Food Bank, for which she has served as a board member since 2008. Cyndi describes the food bank as something that is near and dear to her heart.
Well, Cyndi, thank you for joining the conversation.
Thank you for inviting me. This is an honor.
You know, a couple of months ago, I had an opportunity to tour your facility and your program, and I saw that it was registration and it was chaotic, and there were all kinds of people rushing around to get students registered. I was impressed with the level of support that your staff obviously does because that is their job, but also they're passionate about doing it. I was very impressed with that kind of support. How did that come to be?
Well, thank you. It really is one of our core values is to support the student for international programs. And so we did a good job. I'm glad that's what you saw. We're doing what we're supposed to be doing. Our value is to be customer focused. It's one of our main cores, to be innovative and to contribute to the campus.
You have been at Green River for 14 years. Tell us a little bit about why you decided to join the community college, and also tell us what the program looked like then.
Sure. It's kind of an interesting story how it came about that I am in the position that I'm in now. The community college decided to develop an international program about 1989. And it started out very small, obviously, like things do. When I came on, that was a few years later, we had about 50 host families and less than 100 international students on campus. Right now, over the last year, we hover right around between 14 and 1,500 students on campus. And since the database came on, which was many years later, and we started tracking things, we have vetted right around 1,000 host families for our international program, and we have about 450 active right now. So it's grown tremendously.
The host family program has been kind of a cornerstone from its beginning. Tell us a little bit about how the host family works, how you screen for host families, and the experiences that the students enjoy by being a part of that program.
Sure, I'll do that, but I want to answer part of your other question, is how I got involved. Was actually I started out as a host family and hosting, and then things evolved, and I came on staff, and I got to grow up with the program, so that was great. I wanted to make sure folks knew that. A little bit different career path. And the vetting process for becoming a host family for Green River Community College, we have an orientation, and we don't let any host families we don't send out like an application and say, here, apply to be a part of our program. They must attend the orientation. And my team's ongoing joke is if they come and listen to us for 2.5 hours, that's kind of their first test that they're really serious about becoming a host family. We go over best practices, program expectations, what we believe makes a good host family. Then we do a background check, a criminal background check on anybody who's 18 or older in the home. After that, my staff makes an appointment, goes out, does an in-home interview, and we look at the home to see, is this a good environment for a student to study? We look at safety issues. We get so technical to see if they have fire alarms, and if they're working, smoke detectors. Do they have a plan? If they're on a second floor, if the student's bedroom's on a second floor, they have to buy one of those ladders for an escape route out the window. So those are the things we look for and talk about. We also look to see how the family interacts, the family members interact. We look to see what the walk is from the bus stop, if they're supposed to take the bus to the home, and the lighting and those sort of things. And we don't comment on their decorating, but we look to see, is it an environment that you would feel comfortable in? And I have the pleasure of having a lot of moms with children that have gone on to college and on with their lives. And so the litmus test is, will we place our kids there?
Is there a general profile of a successful host family?
I believe with all my heart, a successful host family is somebody who does this because they like the idea of globalizing their family, the international interaction with other cultures, that they value other cultures and people. They get to experience cultures they may not ever be able to get to go visit themselves by inviting folks into their home, students into their home. They like the idea of not only the cultural exchange, but the idea that their family members themselves, their children, get to have that experience. And many, many times, the connections are lifelong connections. I have connections with some of the students who have lived with me 15 years back. Not only did they live with me, but they came back for my son's weddings. I've been invited to their weddings. I know about when their kids are born. So I think the host family is looking for that, as well as the stipend to defray the cost. If a host family is just looking to host a student because they see it as a money-making proposition, they're not going to last, because you can never make enough money if you don't enjoy the experience for it to be a good thing.
We first got acquainted when, I guess in 2004, when we opened a on-campus student housing development together. Tell us a little bit about how that came to be and how that lives in harmony with the host family program.
Sure, I'd love to. As you know, our audience may not know, Green River was one of the first to kind of jump into the pool for on-campus housing. It was driven by a capacity need for international students on campus. We had a lot of host families, but we also thought this is another option that we can offer international students. Some of them were looking for that experience, to have the student development, the campus housing, everything that goes along with being on campus. None of us had been involved at that point with a traditional student housing model, so we knew that we needed to go to the folks that knew what they were doing and wanted a turnkey company, somebody that could come in and develop the project from financing with our foundation all the way to then turning around and being able to help us manage the property as well. And lucky for us, Capstone was willing to do that for us. We got everything in place and developed the housing, and it's been a great collaboration and partnership. I think to talk about how it lives in harmony, there was a lot of talk at the beginning of the project of, do we really need host families and on-campus housing? And I stuck to my guns and said, yes, we do, because they're two completely different experiences, and it really did prove out that it grew our capacity even more than we knew. It didn't cannibalize the host family. That was the other concern of host families. Will it cannibalize that program? It grew that program, and now we have a wait list and are full over at Campus Corner, so everybody's happy.
And I must confess, I was one of those people that thought it might cannibalize or it might hurt, actually, the on-campus program, and you certainly did prove that to be false. Can you tell me a little bit about how the on-campus component has really helped grow the program?
Well, it's very attractive for students to be as close to the college as possible. That's one of the things they want. All the development theory out there is, if you get the students involved with activities on campus, where they live, and in the apartments, get them closer into where everything is going on for the educational goals, that they have better they reach their goals and they have a better experience. And so I think it's enriched the opportunity for community college students who would have never had that opportunity before to get involved with that. We have domestic and international students. The larger population is international students over there. It also captures that group of students that they didn't really want the host family experience. They wanted the independent lifestyle. They're very serious students and they want to be right on campus so they can study and walk back and forth and be home.
You know, if you had it to do over again as far as developing student housing on campus, is there some suggestions or things you would do differently?
That made me pause because I'm thinking, but the only thing that comes to mind is because where we're at in the project now is we should have built bigger and more capacity, because I think it's become a very popular place. The only thing I would have done different is anticipate the turnover. So when you do a pro forma and you base your baseline budget on that, you just need to have the support staff, and you need to have take into mind that you're going to have more turnover at a community college than you would normally in a four-year institution, and build that in so that the budget works better for you, for knowing that there is going to be a different type of clientele. I don't think that we've fully understood how that would impact the project at the time.
I think the other challenge, too, is you're on the quarter system, so there's a lot more turnover in the project. I also think that the finance community back in the days when this project was being put together set you up at a pretty high standard.
Yes.
Because of some doubts that the program would be successful and set some high standards to meet targets. You certainly have met the targets and then some, but that was part of the challenge, I think, of that particular project.
Yeah, I think so. But other than that, I think the concept for the program, I think the apartment-style living has worked for our group. And on the college side, we need to own the fact that we didn't have some of the services in place that really needed to be in place to make it as attractive as it could be, and that being we don't have a full food service that runs on the weekends, and kind of the card system where it's a declining balance. So we're working on those things still. What's this, 7 years into the project? But I think having those things hand in glove are real important for the students that are living there.
Well, I think a lot of schools are struggling with that, but I also could say that your growth and your retention would suggest that students have overcome that.
They have. We put things in place in collaboration with the staff over at the Capstone staff that is over at the project. We make sure they get to go shopping, go to the stores that they want to go. So we have some cultural relevant markets in the area, Asian markets, different Asian style markets for the international population. We have gone up and talked with the local businesses and encouraged them that here's a huge population up here on the hill. You might want to think about adding the items to your product offerings that will attract this group, and they've done that. I'm thinking of the grocery store just up a little bit. They started out with maybe a half of an international aisle, and now they have 2 full aisles of international foods because they have the clientele to support that.
A lot of institutions are looking at sort of a flat enrollment future going forward with demographics, and they're looking to the international student recruiting population as a new one to draw upon. Can you give them any advice as they look, maybe sometimes for the first time, in developing a serious international student program?
Absolutely. I think the 2 important things to remember is you have to have the support staff in order to deliver the customer service and meet the needs of this population. They don't have the same support, nor do they understand the educational expectations and system as the domestic students. So at higher education levels where they're thinking about bringing international students in, they make some assumptions based on our model, our U.S. model and our domestic model, where these are young adults, they can self-serve, they're savvy, they understand the system, and you can't apply that to international students. They may have English proficiency, but they're coming from a completely different paradigm, and they need those support services. At least the successful programs I am involved with and have seen, they have all those support services and places, and they don't assume that the students can self-serve. And the other thing, the other thing is you have to have some housing in place, because they're coming from out of country, and obviously, even if they're transferring from somewhere else, they're not driving in the car with grandma's bed in the back, sort of a thing. They really need to have housing available for them, and with the idea in mind that you're going to set everything up for them that they need.
You know, one of the things that we've stumbled upon a number of times is how do you provide services to domestic students to help them accept an international roommate or an international friend or an international classmate. Is there any advice you could offer in helping us also think about what domestic students need to make this a successful effort?
Great question. I think it has to do, I think a lot of the folks out in the housing world, the student housing world, already do a lot of the things that, you know, trying to cross boundaries, but think about the boundaries being maybe more global, and building community with folks that are coming from a completely different worldview, that they would get their staff some cross-cultural training, cross-cultural communication training. I remember really early on giving this example of, just because you have a student from Japan sitting there in your office and you're going through something, maybe it's the contract or something, and they're going, to us in the U.S., that means, yes, I'm agreeing with you. To a Japanese student, that means I heard you. That doesn't mean I understood it or that I agree with you, because they're just commenting. It would be impolite not to make a sound or a gesture if you're talking. It shows that they're engaged with you. And so they would go, but we went through this and they said they understood. I go, did they really, or did they shake their head? Well, they shook their head and said yes. So I think that's just one little example that you have to kind of just know those little cultural idiosyncrasies.
You know, one of the things I know firsthand is that you have trained the RA staff in the project and do that on a regular basis. Have you ever thought about putting that in a program so that it could be videoed and used in training sessions? They find it very helpful.
I haven't, but that would be really fun. That would be fun to do. And there are folks out there that do this. I'm not the only person that does this. There are lots of folks out there that do cross-cultural training, and there are some fun things that we can do, some immersion sort of exercises to do where it kind of sets the pace, and it's an aha moment to discover our own biases, because I think you also have to come from a place that we all have biases, instead of denying our biases, realizing we all have bias, recognize it, and then moving on to embrace the different cultures, but still getting our jobs done, still doing what we need to do.
Good. You know, I know you do a lot of recruiting as well. Do you have a favorite country that you visit to speak about?
I think Sweden was fun. It was, it's easy because everybody speaks English there. So, and that was a fun visit. I'd like to do more Western Europe. I haven't done that. So I'm sure there are lots of other fun places I just haven't been exposed to.
Are there countries you're targeting that maybe are different from what you had looked at the past for your program at Green River Community College?
Yes, great question. We always do that. We have, we look at our enrollment every week. We have a very robust marketing plan. We have full-time recruiters. That's probably another thing that speaks to the question. You need to have folks that are recruiters and they understand international recruiting, because what we've built our program on is relationship. And so that's why we go and travel so much. And it's not I'm not a marketer. It's not really my job, but anybody in the organization can go out and recruit and market if they have a desire to do that and they have the aptitude to do that. It's encouraged, but you really want your core marketers that are out there and very intentionally building relationships with our educational partners, with schools. There's a lot of folks that depend on the internet and that direct kind of application, but that's a completely different student than the students that come through the educational partners.
We've spoken before, and you mentioned a program that you're looking at piloting relative to using technology for the first year and then moving students over here for the second and beyond. Tell us a little bit about that pilot.
So we found that a really good model, and it's being requested with some of our overseas partners, is the component where they would love for us to send an instructor over there. And it's called a 1+1+2. So one year in their school or in their system, 1 year at Green River Community College, preparing them to transfer on then for 2 years at a 4-year institution. And it's not as easy to get folks to commit to that, and there's a large group of our partners that would like to have instructors go that way. So we're expanding our distance education and looking at utilizing that technology has really grown for us, and using that for that 1 year in country, offshore, and then coming to Green River. So that's kind of, we're looking in that direction right now.
So the faculty member stays here, and it's
right.
And you're using technology for that first year.
Yes, yeah, and that's part of you asked in the last question of what are the different markets. That's a market. We're always looking to diversify. We're heavy in the Asian markets. They've been very responsive for overseas, but we're always taking on new target markets. Central and South America we're looking at. We've opened up some of our recruiting in Western Europe, in like the stands and Ukraine and Russia. We're looking at Southeast Asia, some of the countries that we've had a large relationship with Vietnam, but some of the lesser known Southeast Asian countries. So we're always looking. We're always cognizant that you can't just target one country, because anything can happen.
Yeah. Well, bringing it back to home, I also noticed in your bio that you are very dedicated over many years to the Washington Food Bank. Tell me how you got involved and why.
Well, thank you for bringing that up. It's near and dear to my heart. I've served on the board for a while. I've always enjoyed community involvement, working with nonprofit organizations. I tease and say I come from an Italian background, and so cooking and food and feeding people mean you love them. So it was a natural fit for me with the food bank. But I looked at the organizations, and there's great organizations to become involved with. The food bank was always a draw for me, or a soup kitchen. It's a family value. Our children growing up, we made sure that they had opportunity to serve the homeless and to be involved with those sorts of things. And I just continued on with that. I think it would be startling to most folks that don't work with nonprofits or with food banks to know who the clientele are. It could be your coworker. It's not necessarily somebody who's made bad choices and find themselves in a bad financial situation. We're seeing more and more of that. It breaks our heart that 18 to 20-something-year-olds that tried to launch on their own, and with the economy and things going on, just can't quite make it. So it's important work, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
Do you pull in your international students as well?
We do. It's been a great fit. The piece I get to bring to it are the international students volunteer. We have a large volunteer program, and they do lots of different volunteer opportunities, but they love the food bank. We get our short-term programs involved on a regular basis, our grant programs involved on a regular basis, and these are students that come over. They get exposed for a day or maybe they volunteer longer. They get to see the U.S. idea of that to whom much is given. You're expected to give back much, and the idea that we're here to take care of everybody, and anybody can find themselves in a situation that's different than a lot of their cultural paradigms, where it's kind of fatalistic and you're born into wherever you are and it's just the way it is, and I don't have a responsibility towards you. So it opens their eyes to a different way of looking at that. And we've had students go back to their own country and replicate being able to help in their own community. And that's probably been the most rewarding when we hear those reports, or when I hear those reports, that it impacted somebody to a call to action to do something in their own community.
Well, Cyndi, thank you for joining our program. I have to say thank you also for your contribution to higher education, international education. Certainly your community is benefited by your presence. And also for our listeners, those people who are wanting to know more about international student programs or serving the needs of international students, I certainly want to see them come your way, because you are certainly a program in this country that is a shining star in this area. So thank you again for joining us, and we hope to see you again soon.
Thank you. My pleasure. Anytime.